Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to call our Burke County Board of Commissioners pre-agenda meeting to order for Monday, December the 2nd, 2019. Madam Clerk, all the commissioners are here along with the county attorney, county manager. If you would, ladies and gentlemen, if you're in the audience, please silence your mobile devices. If you have those with you, turn them on vibrate. And when you come up to the table to speak, if you'll mash the button to the right, we'll activate a little red light on top of the microphone here, and we would certainly appreciate that. Before we get started again, I want us to take a little bit of time to remember Margaret Pierce and her husband Will. As I've said before, Will has gone through some terrible times. I don't know any other way to explain it besides being terrible. I just received a text message from Margaret. She is searching for a hospice in Burke or a hospice in Catawba County to bring her husband to. The end of time is near for him. So if you would please remember Margaret as a family member of our Burke County family, her and Will and their daughters, as they go through a time that none of us really relish having to go through. Of course, Will's had a terrible time with the number of surgeries that he's had when he's been there. So please remember the Pierce family in your prayers at this season. At this time, I would like to recognize our new director of Burke County Department of Social Services. That would be Corey Fischer-Wellman. Corey, if you will come up here and sit down at the table up there, push the microphone button to the right, turn the red light on, and kind of give us an introduction of yourself and tell us about you and your family and what you can expect from us, and we'll tell you what we expect from you.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate you letting me come here and speak to you. My name is Corey Fischer-Wellman. Like he said, I've come to Burke County from Catawba County, where I've worked for the last 14 years. Worked in a variety of different areas throughout the agency in Catawba County, and really looking forward to this opportunity. My wife and I and 5 children reside in Catawba County. That 5 kids keeps us pretty busy, ranging from 2 to 18, so kind of all the different spectrum. So I'm not really sure what I expect. I'm just excited to get started. This is day 2, so it's hard to still trying to wrap my head around lots of things, but excited to get started and to be able to work with you guys.
Gentlemen, any questions or comments for Corey? Any kind of welcome? Mr. County Manager.
If by chance you need a dog or a cat, we got somebody to help you out.
Your kids would love it.
Yeah, there's no more room. Sorry.
Anyone else?
I'd just like to say welcome to Burke County, and I think I speak for everybody if we can help. We're as close as your telephone, or usually you find us here at least twice a month.
Yeah.
So come see us.
Okay, anyone else? Well, Corey, on behalf of the commissioners, we welcome you here to Burke County. It is a daunting task at our DSS. There's a lot of great people that work there. It's been back and forth turnover. We understand that, but you come highly regarded with Commissioner Britton, who sits on that DSS board. We are more than pleased to have you there. We know it's going to take some time for you to go through, meet everybody, look at some of the issues that DSS faces, but we have the utmost confidence in you. We hope you don't give up on us, because we certainly aren't going to give up on you. All right. And we just, again, we welcome you aboard. Ladies and gentlemen,
Thank you.
that is our biggest department right now. It certainly is. How many? 179. Yeah, a lot of
That's a daunting task.
It is.
Ladies and gentlemen, will you help me? Well, you did well on your button test. Thank you, sir. All right. All right, gentlemen, moving on to item number 2 is the agenda itself. You've had that in front of you for several days. We'll entertain a motion to approve. We've heard Wayne's motion. All in favor signify by raising the right hand. Madam Clerk, that'd be 5-0. Moving on to the rest of our agenda, number 3 is organization of the board, which is a placeholder at our regular meeting. At that particular time, we will have elections for chairman, elections for vice chairman, and without a objection, this will remain on the agenda unless somebody does have an objection. Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 3, which would be a placeholder also is appointment of the county attorney for 2020 and the appointment of the tax attorney for 2020. And if there's any comments, hearing none and without objection, that will remain on the regular agenda. And item number 5 will it be appointment of the clerk to the board for 2020. And without any objection, that will remain on the agenda. Moving on to our presentations for our regular meeting. The first one will be from Animal Services, our clinic, Animal Services Clinic, will be the pet of the month, and that will be presented by Caitlin Settlemeyer, our Animal Services Director. Caitlin, who we got on dock this time?
Well, it depends on who we have at the shelter or the Animal Services Center at that point in time. Hopefully everybody gets adopted within the next 2 weeks. Of course, that's our goal. So it's kind of on a case-by-case basis. If Miss Daisy's still there, she'll probably be our pet of the month. We still have Mr. Gomez from last month. He is still with us. So if anybody's looking to adopt a pet who wants to be an only pet, please come down and visit him. So, but this is just a placeholder for the agenda meeting for our pet of the month.
Okay, any questions for Caitlin? Still appreciate the fine work you're doing, all the recognition we're getting from out of county and some of those magazines. Kind of mention that again, what magazine was we recognized in?
We were in the Best Friends Animal Society magazine. If anybody is interested in animal welfare, it's a huge organization. They work all over the country with a bunch of counties, trying to get them up to speed. Burke County was a main focus for them, but they came down, kind of saw the good work we were doing. They donated a few things, and they recognized us for all the good things we and the community are doing down here.
All right, Mr. County Manager.
The tree you're going to have.
Yes, we are doing similar to kind of like an angel giving tree. So all of our pets have sat down and wrote out their wish list for Santa this year. Some of them are asking for collars, treats, toys, things of that nature. So we do have those advertisements are going to be on our tree. We're having a tree decorating on December 5th. From 5 to 7, so you can come down. We'll have some apple cider, visit with our animals. You can kind of see who's down there, pick out an animal from the tree. You're more than welcome to buy gifts for them. Those gifts will, if the animal's still at the Animal Services Center, hopefully they're not, they'll either go with their new adopted family or into their foster home, or they'll be opened on Christmas Day at the Animal Services Center.
And we're having a game competition night one night, I understand?
Yes, on December 12th, we're actually going to have treat decorating. So we're going to have hopefully some kids come in and do some treat decorating and holiday book reading to our animals. And then on the 19th, we're also having trivia down there. So it'll be pet themed and holiday themed. So fun for all ages. We do ask that you do leave your furry family members at home. Do not bring those to the Animal Services Center.
Update on Caesar.
Caesar is still in the program. We just spoke with Ashley Horton at Canines for Warriors. She came down and looked at a few of our other dogs. He is scheduled to graduate in January if all goes well, so he is still in the program doing a fantastic job. For anybody who has missed that, he is in that program to become a service dog for a veteran with PTSD.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, without objection, this item will remain on the presentations. Thank you, Caitlin. All right, moving on to item number 2 is an update from Partners Behavioral Health Management by Tara Conrad. Tara, good to see you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I will say the photos of the animals are so adorable. It sucks you right in. So I do want to give you a brief update on where we are in regards to serving individuals that receive publicly funded behavioral health services. So part of this will be 12-month period and part will be the first quarter. So if you can go to the first slide. Oh, am I supposed to do that? Oh, okay, thank you. So the first slide's looking at the cost of service by disability based on 12 months ending September 30th. And again, our time frame lags a little behind some others due to the amount of time we allow our providers to bill for specific treatment services. So we've broken this out by disability and Medicaid and state and or federally funded services. So I guess, did you change slides? I guess looks a little different. There, yeah, the cost is where, yeah, thank you. So looking at the cost of disability, if you look under intellectual and developmental disability, we spent a little over $18.4 million in Medicaid dollars for 12 months ending September 30th, $481,440 in state and or some federal grant dollars to cover services for that specific population. Under mental health, it was $10.6 million. And 1.8 in non-Medicaid funding spent to provide treatment for those individuals. In the substance use category, this is a little different than it has been in previous years and quarters. But looking at Medicaid, we spent $919,000 and $919,000 in Medicaid funds, and $1.1 million in state or federal grant dollars. That number is typically higher than normal with the $1.1 million because we've received several federal grants to address substance use and the opioid epidemic. So if you go to the next slide. Persons served by disability. Looking at adult versus child, blue stands for child, age 3 to 21. We served 91 individuals. Again, this is through a 12-month period. Course of treatment's usually longer than a month, so we do it over a 12-month period. So we served 95 children, 266 with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Under mental health category, we served a little over 1,400 children and a little over 2,400 adults that had a primary diagnosis of mental health. And with substance use, we served 65 children and 925 adults with a primary substance use disorder during 12 months ending September 30th. So before I go to the next category, is there any questions regarding the numbers served and the cost for treatment for those individuals?
Tara, it's a little shocking when I looked at these graphs and as on page 16 that you just covered, the adults 21 and over is about 9 times or better than the ones under 21, and it just seems, and just a few months ago on the news we heard where opiate was being curtailed, it was going down, et cetera, but according to your graph, y'all are still doing the majority of it with over 21.
Yes, in this, and it's important to note substance use is opioids plus other substance use issues, whether it's alcoholism or any other type. So I did not break this category down to opioid as their primary diagnoses, opioid use, but so it encapsulates all that fall within the substance use. But typically you will see more adults in that category than you will children with a substance use diagnosis as a primary.
Are they telling you of a trending that it's going to decline, and if so, when?
Well, that's, I think I just read something last week that stated that the state as a whole was in a decline with opioids, but when you get into the individual communities, that's not always the case. And I know opioids is a big issue, but meth continues to be a big issue in some of our counties. And as I understand it, it is an issue here in Burke County as well. So yes, I'd like to tell you, yeah, we have fixed it all and we're ready to go, but that's not quite accurate.
Thank you.
All right, so the next slide will go into county-specific funding and services, and it reflects first quarter billing. So if you look at, and again, if you recall, each year we look at the needs of Burke. We look at the categories in which county dollars could be utilized, and we're very appreciative of county dollars. That's our most flexible pot of money, meaning that we can treat individuals in various locations and with various needs where we would not be able to treat using Medicaid or state dollars to cover those services. So the first category for county dollars is the director and SOAR position at the Burke Integrated Health. Now SOAR stands for, it's an acronym of the SSI and SSDI, Outreach, Access, and Recovery. But what it really does is connect individuals that are at risk of homelessness, those individuals with mental illness, some severe medical condition, and or those individuals that may have co-occurring both mental illness and substance use. It helps connect them to the benefits they may be eligible for. And that's of benefit to accessing treatment and other social determinants of health that they may need. So part of county funding was used to cover the director and SOAR position at Burke Integrated Health. With that, 77 applicants were assisted, 16 were connected with benefits, and the director helped with service navigation and linkage to services within the community that they may need. We also use county funds to cover treatment services in the jail for the mental health and substance use population. 129 individuals did receive treatment while they were in your local jail. CVBH, Catawba Valley Behavioral Health Care, is the provider for that service. Psychiatric support, we use county dollars to help fund treatment and services for individuals that may not have access to that otherwise. CVBH, again, is our provider for that service in this area, and they serve 506 patient visits, initial, refill, etc. Moore's program is another initiative we're doing here in Burke, and that the purpose of that particular service is to address the needs of a whole family. A child is identified, so the goal is to try to maintain that child in that family unit by treating all the needs of that family, not just what the child needs. So they provide, it's a team approach, they provide therapy and other particular services, as well as help the family address social determinants of health with the goal of diffusing crisis situations and keeping that family intact. So currently we have 2 families enrolled in that program here in Burke. The embedded therapist at DSS, this has been an interesting endeavor, and I think historically has been effective. Over the last several months, we've really looked at reassessing the needs of that particular service and how best to meet the demand for that service. So previously, a caring alternative was the provider of that service. They had screened and completed assessments and therapy on 30 individuals. We are looking to tweak that service and still offer it embedded in DSS. Based on information we've received with DSS, that was effective, and they appreciated that service located at DSS, which made for a quick turnaround of assessments. Individuals were getting their needs met, etc. Psychiatric services, we use county dollars to help offset the cost at Blue Ridge Healthcare for some of the individuals that end up in the psychiatric unit at the hospital. And as you can tell, this is in process. We have not funded an individual at this particular time. The reason being, we also give them state dollars and Medicaid dollars, so we use the county dollars after all other expenditures have been utilized. So I fully expect that to change next quarter. Looking at housing needs, we contract with various providers to deliver housing support for individuals, whether that's assisting with perhaps rent or whatever need may exist for an individual with a behavioral health need, trying to maintain stable housing. Thus far in first quarter, we had 2 individuals tap into that service. Consumer reserves, that's a pot of funding we utilize to cover something that is of an immediate need and the individual may not be connected to another funding stream. A perfect example of this would be a multidisciplinary evaluation that is a high-cost service, and an individual may need that immediately to help clinically assess what the individual needs, and there may be no other funding stream. So in order to get that individual connected as quickly as possible to needed services, we can utilize county dollars to fund that assessment and then link the individual up to Medicaid or state dollars, whatever's more appropriate. System of Care Community Collaborative, that is a group of both professionals as well as family members of individuals with behavioral health needs. Historically, Burke has had both an adult and child collaborative. This year, we have combined the two, so there's one large collaborative that addressed the behavioral health needs of both adults and children. The groups are comprised of treatment providers, like I said, family members, school personnel, just a variety of different disciplines, and they assess what some of the needs are here in the community, and they use county dollars to help meet some of those needs. Historically, it involves training, whether it's on prevent child sexual abuse, mental health first aid, some of those elements, crisis intervention training for law enforcement. Thus far, we've supported the Burke Recovery Rally with some of those funds. The rally was to raise awareness for substance use and treatment options available here in the community. Psychiatric support and medication. Good Samaritan Clinic is the provider of that service, and thus far, first quarter, they served 96 patients and supplied 31 prescriptions and the medication for those particular needs of the individual. NAMI is a support group for individuals, National Alliance of Mental Illness. That is a support group for family members of individuals living with mental illness. And as of first quarter, they had not utilized any of the county funding. And I fully expect that to change as the year goes on, but that's as it stands for first quarter.
All right, you've heard Tara's report. Anybody got any questions or comments?
Very easy.
Great
Thank
presentation.
you.
Hearing no questions or comments, without objection, this item will remain on for presentation. Thank you, Tara. Moving on, item number 3 is going to be a financial update for the period ending September the 30th, 29 of TDA, and that will be presented by Ed Phillips, TDA Director. Brother Ed?
Good afternoon. I also wanted to bring to your attention a late edition packet that I provided to you guys. I think it's important for you to know about our strategic plan and where we go and what we're trying to achieve. Also, if you'll turn to the last 2 pages. So every year, the federal government does a study on visitor spending in North Carolina, and it's broken down by county. And in 2018, we grew at 5.8% in Burke County in visitor spending. And I wanted to point out, we put together a little graph on that page, the first page, where we stand in western North Carolina, and we finished 6th in growth, right behind Buncombe County, but ahead of a lot of other tourism-related counties in western North Carolina. We also, the next page, the very last page of that packet, shows visitor spending growth in our neighboring counties. And so Burke beat Catawba, McDowell, and Caldwell in visitor spending growth in 2018. Not by much, but still first place. So we're thrilled with that. So in presenting our first quarter fiscal year financial report, I believe I have these in the correct order that you also have them, which is our balance sheet as of September 30th, our profit and loss as of September 30th, and also our budget versus actual and also annual budget for the year. And since this is the first time we've ever done this in this format, I would like to kind of go through our budget and just tell you, so for this fiscal year, which started July 1st, we anticipated collecting $607,000 in occupancy tax, and that's a net to us. The county actually collects a little more than that and retains 15% or 5%, let me get this right, 3% of the first $500,000, 1% above $500,000. So our budget is a net budget on what we actually receive. Also looking at our annual other income, which is initially this year that was fund balance. And we're using fund balance to kickstart our group marketing campaign with the anticipation that we're going to bring more groups here, more hotel stays. When we get our new downtown hotel open, our interstate hotel open, another boutique hotel downtown Morganton open, that we're going to be ahead of the game by booking conferences into the future, and we're already making some progress on that. We also had a special project in October where we utilized the Ridgeline trolley, and we brought in a significant amount of money in October, almost $13,000, which is not on this, but you'll see it in the next report you get, from tours that we did, the fall color tours on the Ridgeline trolley. And so that was contributed significantly to our other income line item. And then, yeah, we're doing well on that. You can see our expense line items that go down on the far right column for accounting, marketing, advertising, et cetera. And then an important number is what's given to the city of Morganton and the town of Valdez through our legislative act that created us, and that is a percentage of the second 3%. So we're divided first 3% of occupancy tax, the second 3%. And in the second 3%, the city of Morganton receives 45% of that. And that amounts, based on this budget of $607,000, a little over, about $136,000. And then the town of Valdez will get about $75,000, give or take. That is a floating number because it is a formula. And so the occupancy tax collections, if they go up, they get more. If they go down, they get a little bit less. And that formula has been in place since 2007. There's a whole other list of line items down here, including insurance and payroll expenses and rent, trolley expenses. We manage the trolley on a break-even budget, $15,000 in revenue and $15,000 in expenses. This year we're going to exceed that significantly. We've never really capped out on our expenses, but we have spent a lot of money on keeping it up. And again, since this is our first format in doing this, I'll entertain any questions or comments or.
All right, gentlemen, you've heard Ed's presentation. Questions or comments?
I get asked this occasionally, so I'll get a good answer today. I've been questioned a couple of different times. Is there a plateau that Drexel and Hildebrand and Weatherford College and Glen Isle Pond has to get to before they enjoy part of that fund?
Well, I think that the tourism aspect of Burke County covers the whole county, and we market the whole county effectively. You know, there are some small communities that might have a festival that we help them promote it on social media. That is a tourism aspect of their community. There are vacation rentals, and I had some notes here I wanted to share with you too about vacation rentals. Vacation rentals are spreading all over Burke County, even into some of the smaller municipalities and outlying areas of the county. In our last time we did, this was back in June, we did an inventory of vacation rentals, and we have 130 vacation rentals in Burke County. Those are individual homes that are being rented out to visitors. That number fluctuates, but 3 years ago we had 65. So this has doubled in 3 years, the number of vacation rentals. And they're all over Burke County. So when those people come and stay in the eastern part of Burke County or in the Glen Alpine area, you know, it has a definite impact on them. We also had, in 2018, 3,577 visitors in the visitor center, which came from the top states. And this is very curious because there's one state in here you wouldn't think that would contribute that much. But the fourth most populated counted state that came in our visitor center was California. So we had Florida, South Carolina, Virginia, California, Tennessee, New York, and Ohio. But we really truly believe that the tourism economy is spreading throughout Burke County, eastern Burke County, southern Burke County, and all over. And a lot of it is the vacation rentals. You know. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. You're helping some as it sits. But there is not a theory or formula. If my city grows to 4,000 population, does it get more weight, or how does that work? How does
More weight is related to.
weight in getting funds to promote their town?
Well, we don't actually give any funds except to Valdez and Morganton, and that's stipulated by the legislation that was in 2007. And, you know, and that would have to go back to the General Assembly to change that. But if that's your question, yeah. But we do market the whole county in every aspect of the small towns.
Well, the people at Henry River has questioned me a time or two on that, so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I will also, in part of your financial report, will also state that it says in here, as far as revenue through September 30th, we're always 2 months behind in the revenue. So the person that pays the occupancy tax, they collect it in, let's say, July. They have until August 15th to remit it to the county, and then the county keeps it and remits it to us in September. So the numbers you see in here, the 56,640.02, was July only. As we get further into these reports, you'll see that that starts to catch up and add up into our revenue. So far through July, August.
Catches up to your revenue or catching up to your budget of 151,000?
That's catching up to the budget, but that budget, the 151,000 is a 12-month budget that's broken down quarterly. And like, you know, we have ups and downs, just like July and October is our #1 occupancy tax collecting months because of tourist season. It has leveled out more over the years, but July, August, and September, the 3 months, which you'll see on the next report I do the next time I'm up here, is $157,000 for 3 months, July, August, September. That's down about $1,000 from last year for those 3 months. And we are seeing more competition for hotel business. The Hampton Inn and Lenore opened up. We've also seen Holiday Inn Express in Marion open up. Some of the hotels here felt like they would see a bigger decrease in that, but they're very competitive and they do a good job of promoting themselves. So we don't anticipate a huge decrease. We hope to grow.
Ed, on those vacation rentals, and we've talked about this before, but I forgot the exact answer, but Z's expand, is there ways for that we're not able to capture that occupancy tax on these individual homes? Because, you know, that's kind of the surge and where we're going. And, you know, I know there's always a way to evade that, it seems like. And I want to make sure we capture those taxes. How do we know we're getting what we were supposed to get?
Well, that would be I don't know if anybody's from the tax office here today, Danny, but I can tell you that we know who's remitting every month, and Danny knows that and can check. The Airbnb is the way that most of these vacation rentals are going because it's an easy online management system, and it's more safe and secure than trying to rent something on your own and try to deal with all that. And Airbnb does collect North Carolina sales tax and occupancy tax by the location, whether it's a municipality or county government. They collect that occupancy tax and remit it. The missing link with Airbnb is they don't remit it by each individual property. It's just one gross amount. And so the tax office and we can't go back and say it's from this property or this property or this property. And we have to assume it's correct and it's all there, but there are very few people. If you look online, type in Morganton or Burke County vacation rental, most of them are on Airbnb or HomeAway. There are very few that are being managed by individuals anymore. There may be a handful out there, and I think Danny probably knows more about who those are and who's on our list. That's on the list, and there's a list now. I guess it's about 30 different entities, 35 that remit, and those are hotels, vacation rentals, bed and breakfast, all of those. So I don't think we're missing many that are sneaking through. In fact, we have a policy in place that if they do not collect the Burke occupancy tax, we do not list them on our website. And we had one sneak around on us a couple of years ago that tried to get on the state tourism website, and they told call Ed Phillips. And when they called me, I said, you're not collecting the occupancy tax, you're not getting on there. And they try to pull this, they're a campground, they do this, but they're on the internet renting out their space, so, but they're not on our website. So that's the one thing we can do. Yeah.
Other questions or comments?
Where are we with the letter to the county manager on the different financial reporting requirements? Have we got all that finished in the letter to the county manager?
Well, this is what we're doing right now today is the response to that. Yeah. And this will be done quarterly. And then what I would also like to do is at least once a year, maybe in the spring, this is all the money, we're talking about all the money here, but how do we spend that money and what do we do with it and what are the results is another whole presentation on the efforts of the marketing and how we made it into the Our State magazine with the big Lentil Gorge cover and some of these other places that we found, that we're getting great coverage on. So in the first quarter of next year, 2020, I'd like to come back, give the financial report, and also talk about all the publicity and the great things that are going on in here.
Other questions or comments? All right, hearing none without objection, this item will remain on the presentation agenda. Okay, thank you, Ed. Moving to item number 5, our scheduled public hearings. Our first hearing will be a zoning map amendment, ZMA 2019-09, and public hearing presented by Scott Carpenter, Deputy County Manager and Planning Director. Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. I'm sure most of you all are familiar with this rezoning request from colleagues and others, but Alan Wisnett, he is requesting to rezone a 2-acre portion of a 5.74 acre parcel. The request is to rezone that portion of property from its current split zoning of R1 and R2 to the general business conditional district. The 911 address of the parcel is 2635 Moose Lodge Street, Morganton, North Carolina, and the parcel has one residential dwelling on the property in which the applicant and his family currently reside. The applicant has recently been permitted to operate 2 home occupations within the dwelling. The home occupations are for a painting studio where painting classes are held, as well as a taxidermy business. Taxidermy in North Carolina is considered as an art form. The applicant recently received approval from the Burke County Board of Adjustment to construct the 3,600 square foot residential accessory structure on the property, and at the time of approval, the Board of Adjustment placed a condition on that approval that a building could only be used for residential purposes. And that is what caused the applicant to want to request a rezoning, because his taxidermy business, he also owned a deer processing facility in Drexel, which was closing, and he wanted to continue doing that, and he wanted to be able to use the 3,600 square foot structure, a portion of it, in order to do that during deer season, and that would not be allowed. So the parcel is not located within a special flood hazard area. The parcel is accessed on the corner of Summers Road and Moose Lodge Street. Both of these roads are public and they're state maintained. As far as the surrounding area goes, land uses in the surrounding area are a mixture of residential, commercial, and industrial uses. The parcels that adjoin the subject property are all zoned residential with dwellings on them. There is a public cemetery on the other side of Summers Road. It's quite a large cemetery. We classify that as institutional as far as land use classification goes. At the end of Moose Lodge Street is the Moose Fraternal Lodge, number 9 193 and the campground, and the Moose Lodge property is zoned general business. Across the street from the subject property is a driveway that provides access to an industrial zone property. There are also several other industrial buildings in the area, and as far as zoning goes, to the north is currently R1, R2 zoning. To the south is R2 and general business. To the east is R1 and R2, and to the west is a mixture of zoning of R2, industrial, as well as general business. As far as conformity with the comprehensive plan, the current land use plan for Burke County is the 2016 to 2030 Blueprint Burke Strategic Land Use Plan. And within this plan, this area of the county is designated as the secondary growth area. This area has many of the attributes of the primary growth area. So, for example, infrastructure, utilities, transportation corridors, and many mixed uses may exist, or there is an expectation that those will exist in the area soon. So we believe that this request is in conformance with the comprehensive plan. Conformity with the Burke County zoning ordinance, the current zoning district for this parcel is split currently with residential 1 and residential 2 districts, and certain home occupations which are incidental or secondary to the residential use are permitted within these districts. No exterior evidence of the presence of a home occupation should exist except for one small sign, though, in those areas. The proposed zoning district is the general business parallel conditional district. The parallel conditional zoning district rezoning process allows particular uses to be established, but only in accordance with a specific development project. So you're not opening up the area to everything that would be in our table of uses for general business, and it would be very specific what would be allowed. The Board of Adjustment denied the applicant's request to lift the condition that the accessory structure only be used for residential personal use. Rezoning to a non-residential district would essentially lift the condition because the land would then allow for non-residential uses. The proposed zoning district is a conditional district. The board can therefore require certain specific conditions which would be reasonable for the specific development project. Those conditions generally are screening, determining the hours of operation, delivery hours from trucks or other things coming to the business. You can address lighting, the access, signage, trash, waste, buffers, that type of thing. Per section 9A of the zoning ordinance, the applicant held a community meeting in advance of the board's meeting. The applicant has provided a very detailed description of the business uses that he is requesting. So as far as the planning board recommendation went, the planning board met on October 24th, 2019 to hear this request. There were a number of citizens present at the meeting. 7 citizens requested to speak. All 7 citizens spoke in favor of the rezoning request, and no one at that meeting spoke against it. The planning board did have some concerns about the disposal of waste products that would occur during processing of deer or bear, depending on the season from that site. Their major concerns were that the waste not sit on the site or not be in a dumpster or something like that, that they be disposed of in black plastic bags that are provided by wildlife, I believe is where he picks them up. And they're taken directly to the landfill and disposed of, so they wouldn't be sitting around stinking up the neighborhood or anything like that. So the planning board voted unanimously to approve the rezoning with the addition of the following self-imposed conditions, and those are: the work environment must be enclosed, no work is to take place outside. Wild game only would be allowed, and that would be deer and bear. Limit hours of operation from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. A lot of times we recommend that be from dusk to dawn as far as the wording goes. It's easier to track than bringing people in later in the winter months at night. As far as lighting, the lighting will be dusk to dawn, LED security lighting, no flashing lights. Number 5 is no dumpsters or trash cans are allowed outside. No waste will be kept on the property. Waste will be taken to the landfill at the end of every day, and the building will maintain a residential look with a natural buffer. And the last thing is that the rezoning would be limited to the non-residential development for taxidermy, a paint studio to include painting lessons to the public, as well as wild game butchering processing, which will be limited to deer or bear season. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have,
All right,
gentlemen.
gentlemen, you've heard Scott's presentation. Questions and/or comments?
Mr. Chairman, I do not have a question. I did want to comment that usually when these elderly people who have this art decease, that business goes away. And there's been 5 deer killed on my property in the last week and a half, and most people are having to take them below maiden to get this service. So if there's no objection to it, I'm tickled to death that they have that service available, and more get them here.
Other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, Scott, a couple of times in the narrative there, you said the building had to have a residential look. Is that to assume that this metal building that we see is a residential look?
It is a residential look. So when the building itself was approved, in our ordinance, if you exceed a minimum threshold of like 1,200 square feet on your accessory building, it has to go to the Board of Adjustment. And when it goes to Board of Adjustment for approval, if it's in a residential setting, then those are conditions that the Board of Adjustment place on the building. So when this one was built, it was built with that in mind so that it wouldn't overwhelm by size and other things that community.
They've already defined this as a residential look as far
Yes,
as this
sir.
building is concerned.
That's right. It was built under the Board of Adjustments and those rules. And it has to maintain that look is what would occur.
Any other questions or comments? Scott, it appears from the information I received that the gentleman and his wife held a meeting of the neighborhood over at one of the local churches. Did you or your staff attend that meeting?
We do not attend those meetings.
Okay, good.
And the reason we don't attend those is we don't want to look biased or to prejudice the process. We will send a deputy or other representative if we feel that there's a need that something might occur, or if there's disgruntlement or that type of thing.
Good. I just wanted you to get that on the record. I've been receiving some emails from a person who is not who he claims to be. I've been receiving emails, and I think some of the rest of us have, from Mr. John Seymour. There's no such person in Burke County, nor is there any person anywhere with that name located anywhere near us.
Yes, sir.
I've advised Mr. Seymour I was going to contact the sheriff for using fictitious names on his emails that he's sending to us. So I don't suppose Mr. Seymour, I think we may know who Mr. Seymour is, did not show up in objection to anything. Is that correct?
No, sir. We're told that he drove by once or twice.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none without objection, this item will remain on for scheduled public hearings. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a nice afternoon.
All right, moving forward to the consent agenda. The first item on the agenda is a proclamation declaring January 2020 as National Radon Action Month. Gentlemen, I did receive a request to put this on our agenda, and we have done this before, knowing that radon is a natural result of uranium decaying in rock and soil, and that does lead to lung cancer among non-smokers, responsible for deaths in the United States. So there is a North Carolina National Radon Program out there, and I would ask your approval to support this proclamation declaring January 2020 as National Radon Action Month. Any questions or comments? All right, hearing none, without objection, this will remain on the consent agenda. Moving on to our next item would be appointments to commissions and boards for next year. You can see the 2019 appointments we have. Burke Development, Inc. is Commissioner Britton, and the county manager. Board of Health, I sit on that one. Yeah, Board of Health. And the Cooperative Water Board, EMS, is Chairman Britton. Commissioner Britton. Commissioner Avery on Foothills at the airport. Commissioner Taylor on JCPC, and also the Oversight Library, and LE, the Planning Committee for Local Emergencies. Anybody got any committee they want to come off of, or any committee they want to be on? Or is everybody satisfied with the committees they're sitting on now? Everybody good? Mm-hmm. I think we've done an excellent job on these committees and had some really great reports. Madam Clerk has been real pleased with that. So, Maynard, you okay with yours?
Not a jealous bone in my body. Anybody can have either one I got, or I'll switch with them, just whatever.
All right, without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Moving on to item number 3 is appointments to the Adult Care and Nursing Home Advisory Committee presented by Kay. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is a request to appoint John Cook to the Adult Care Nursing Home Community Advisory Committee for seat 6, and to appoint Dolores Huffman to seat 7 for the remainder of one-year terms ending May 31st, 2020.
Questions for Kay on these appointments? All right, hearing none without objection, this item will remain on the consent item agenda. Moving on to item number 4, Madam Clerk, is reappointment to the Board of Equalization and Review.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is a request to reappoint Betty Greer to seat number 1 on the Board of Equalization and Review for a 3-year term ending December 31st, 2022.
Any questions for Kay on this matter? All right, hearing none without objection, that will remain on the consent item agenda. Moving on to number 5 from Madam Clerk is the appointment to Board of Health removal and appointment and reappointments. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The terms of appointment for Dr. Michael Gould, seat number 4, physician, Sam King, seat number 8, engineer, and Adriana Morris, seat 11, at large, on the Board of Health end December 31st, 2019. Dr. Gould and Mr. King have served the maximum number of terms allowed and are not eligible for reappointment. We have received an application from Dr. Anthony Frank for seat number 4, and Ms. Morris's application was received for seat number 11. Mr. King will remain on the board until we can find an engineer replacement for him. So this is a request to remove Dr. Gould and to appoint Dr. Frank for a 3-year term ending December 31st, 2022, and to reappoint Adriana Morris to the Board of Health, seat number 11, at large, for a 3-year term ending December 31st, 2022.
Any questions for Kay on these appointments, reappointments? All right, hearing none without objection, this item will remain on the consent item agenda. Moving to item number 6, Madam Clerk, is a resolution establishing the Board of Commissioners 2020 meeting schedule.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is our annual meeting schedule resolution. It sets your pre-agendas for the first Tuesday in the month in this room, except for April and September, unless you do not want to go to South Mountain State Park or the Burke County Public Library and Senior Center in Hildebrand. I have those tentatively reserved in case the board wants to continue with its off-site pre-agenda meetings. Since it will be an even number year, the organizational meeting will be the first Monday in December, and that'll be at 2 o'clock. We'll have a reception at 2:30, and then our pre-agenda meeting at 3 p.m., and that's December 2020. sets regular meetings for the third Tuesday of the month in this room. It sets budget workshop meetings in this room for Friday, May 22nd, Thursday, May 28th, Thursday, June 4th at 2 p.m. All three of those were at 2 p.m. It notices that the board historically attends County Assembly Day in Raleigh, and that will be May 20th on the Capitol grounds. And this year's Commissioners Association Conference will be held in Cabarrus County at the Concord Convention Center, August 13 through 15. We'd be happy to go over any of that. I did want to point out that the way the calendar falls in 2020 with your meeting being on the first Monday in December and the third Tuesday, they kind of fall a week apart. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. It's a little different, but that's just how the calendar falls.
All right, gentlemen, you've heard Kay's report. Any questions or comments or any changes you want to see made? Or are you happy with what she's brought for us?
Mr. Chairman, we discussed this a little bit last year about the off-site meetings. I'm just not sure they've been that well received. Any of the rest of the guys have any thoughts about it? We go, staff has to move a lot of things to other places, and yet I don't see that the public is making lots of appearances. So I'm just not sure it's worth all the effort. That's just my opinion.
Comments on Jeff's opinions?
Mr. Chairman, I agree 100% with Jeff. I, for one, would love to see us have meetings off-site where we get some people that attend, but it's just not happening, and we're trying to take government to the people, and we're not getting any response, which is sort of sad. But I agree with Jeff. We probably don't need to be doing it if we don't get the response from the public.
And I'm in agreement with Wayne and Jeff as well, because I love doing them off in other areas, but like I said, we haven't had the response, and there is, there's a good bit of cost and time involved to set these meetings up for the staff. So, I'm fine not to do the off-site meetings because of that.
Mr. Chairman, I agree that the one we held at the library, East Burke Library, was not well attended. I don't think it was promoted well, but if I remember correctly, the one at South Mountains, you had standing room only and didn't have enough room to seat a lot of people. I still would argue the point that we do not serve each other. We don't serve each other for convenience sake. We serve our citizens of Burke County. It is a good practice to have meetings that makes it convenient for people to come to the event and see how the county works. I was thinking about adding to the request that the high school government day was not well attended this last year either. And maybe that we ought to change that venue a little bit and have them attend at least a pre-agenda meeting, if not a regular meeting. But all these things keeps you in front of the citizens, and it gives them an opportunity to see how your local county government works. I think it's a good practice.
Thank you. I'm going to agree with the other three gentlemen. There's just too much cost associated. And the people at Pine Mountain, I called every one of those people and begged them to come down there. They all lived in that area down there, and thank goodness they did come, but that was what you have to do to get somebody there, and nobody else attended whatsoever. So I'm going to agree. I personally am disappointed that people don't attend those when we move out in the county. That's what they wanted us to do. We did it. and they did not come. So I'm going to agree with my three colleagues here that it's not productive whatsoever.
Again, I agree with what Maynard says, but it's just not happening, and we've tried and tried, so, I mean, if we're just not getting the attendance there and all the work and costs involved, I just don't see it, you know. I'd love to see it, but it's just not happening for us, so.
Times have changed, haven't they? You'll have. Okay, Madam Clerk, I think you got the feeling of the board on that one. Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, without objection, this item will remain on the consent item agenda. Okay, our next item is item number 7, will be referencing a transfer of deeds for school property, and that will be presented by J.R. Simpson, County Attorney. J.R.?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Earlier this year, the state of North Carolina, through its Department of Agriculture, gifted some real estate to the Burke County Board of Education. The 50 acres on which Liberty and North Liberty are situated, as well as another 28-acre parcel between Patton and Mull Elementary. The deed was made to Burke County as the grantee, rather than the Burke County Board of Education. So I understand that we've been requested to deed that property over to the Burke County Board of Education, which would merely take a simple deed, non-warranty, by which the property would finally end up in their name.
Questions or comments for J.R. on this matter?
Mr. Chairman, I was a little shocked to find out we built property on somebody else's land. We built buildings on somebody else's land. The least we could do is to accept the gift of the land where we already have, what, $30–40 million invested? That's my take on it. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good take. I was as shocked as you were when I found out that we had a school sitting on property we didn't own. That was, yeah, kind of bad, wasn't it? All right. Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, without objection, this item will remain on the consent item agenda. Moving to item number 8 from the county manager will be the Burke Catawba Dissolution Agreement. Mr. County Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As you're aware, Burke Catawba, we're going to remove our in-custody defendants as well as Catawba County by the 31st of December. County staff from Burke has been in contact with county staff from Catawba County about the development of a dissolution document, and that is in progress and is ongoing. I hope to have something to you in the near future, especially by the board's meeting, for your consideration.
Questions or comments for Brian? Hearing none, without objection, this item will remain on the consent item agenda. Moving on to item number 9 from community development is the award of a contract for a Fonta Flora Trail in the Lentil Access Boardwalk. That will be presented by Shane Frisbee, our community development operations manager. Shane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I'm passing around the bid results from the Fonta Flora State Trail Lentil Access Boardwalk project. We had a bid opening this morning at 10 a.m. That's when bids were due for this project. It is funded through a Recreation Trails Program grant through fiscal year 2018 from the state, is what matched by $25,000 from Duke Energy funds from the comprehensive relicensing agreement for the Catawba Wateree hydroelectric system. The project consists of some natural surface trail and boardwalk. It was bid in 2 sections, an option A and option B. Option A is 300 feet of boardwalk, which is the amount as specified in the grant. Option B is 525 feet of boardwalk, which is the total amount as required by NCDOT to get around the skinny section between NC 126 and Lake James. This project is a big connection for the existing Fonta Flora State Trail. It will take us from our current terminus at Lentil Access Boat Launch around a narrow section of the lake and allow us to tie back into the Mountains to Sea Trail connector on the other side of the road, thus making some loops that people will be able to enjoy and further continuing the trail. We had 3 parties who were interested at the pre-bid site meeting. We did only receive a single bid for this project from Tri-State Company Incorporated, a contractor we have used in the past and has built several sections of this trail. And we've had a very good relationship with. This project is in the informal bid range, so 3 bids are not required, but we are always looking to get as many as we can on the project. This project bid total, both option A and option B totals came in under our budget of $125,000 for grant and match. My recommendation is that we award option B so that we can complete the whole section of boardwalk, and we will still have roughly $28,000 to account for change orders or any other unexpected expenses as part of this project. I'd be happy to take any questions you have on this.
And there'll be no budgetary effect since the project is funded through RTP and matched by Duke Energy, correct?
That is correct.
All right, any other questions or comments for Shane?
Mr. Chairman, I had one. I understand this is for a total of 1,300 some feet, is that correct?
Between the section of trail and boardwalk, yes.
Pardon?
Between the trail and boardwalk, that is correct.
Yeah. And it's gonna cost us $100,000 in round dollars?
That is correct. It's a combination of the natural surface trail is fairly cheap per linear foot because it's essentially earth moving and some tree clearing. But because of the nature of this project, it's on a extremely steep pitch with a very small narrow gap between the edge of pavement and the lake where it drops off vertically. So the crew will have to come in and dig post holes by hand, set in all of the material, and to get the proper height off of the ground and make the grade, the low side is going to be almost 7 feet out of the ground. So it's quite a bit of material, and that's reflected in the price for the physical boardwalk section, which is the most expensive portion of this project.
I learned from my sister a couple of weeks back. She lives in Charleston, South Carolina. And I used to hear my dad talk about one of these days he's going to buy land by the square foot, not by the square acre. In Charleston, South Carolina, they buy it by the square inch. It seems high to me, but just double checking, 1,300 feet at 5 feet, 5 to 6 foot width, and $100,000 just to do the trail. Will they do the boardwalk too with that, or is that another project?
Yes, sir. It's all part of that project.
Part of that project.
The biggest chunk is the boardwalk, and one thing that we're trying to do with it is use treated lumber that is also marine grade treated, so that part of the cost goes into the longevity of it, so that it will last the test of time and is built in a way that is long-term. So our investment is protected from the elements in that sense as well. And I do feel that this is a competitive price for this, considering our original grant scope was for 300 feet, but to meet DOT's requirement of not digging into the slope at all and slope integrity as priority number 1, we essentially are getting twice the amount of boardwalk for what we originally thought it was going to cost. So I'm quite happy with the price, although it relatively seems high. We're getting a lot more done than we anticipated that we could have. So I'm very happy where we're at.
Shane, I'm sorry.
Maynard, go ahead. Go ahead. Oh.
On this, when do we anticipate it beginning and ending? When could we'll actually see the boardwalk in place?
The anticipated schedule from the contractor would have them doing some preliminary work starting as soon as February, and getting the project completed by June. So
we'd have it for the summer season.
That is
Okay.
correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Other questions or comments for Shane? Hearing none without objection, this will remain on the consent item agenda. Moving on to item number 10 is award contract for Fonta Flora Trail for the Lentil River Side Path. That will be presented by Shane. Shane?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm passing around the second bid that was opened today at our 11 o'clock bid opening. So we ran both projects with a walkthrough on the same day. Generally, with the trail contracts, we have similar interested parties. This one had 2 interested of the 3 who attended the pre-bid meeting. It is for a section of earth and surface trail, armored stream crossing, a high visibility crossing of NC 126, sections of retaining wall and gravel trail. This trail connection is the missing piece of the puzzle that's going to connect existing trail from our previous project, Recreation Trails Program grant at Long Arm, and the state park section to the county park. So when we get both of these projects connected, we will be complete from Harris-Wisnett Road all the way around the lake to the state park. And when they get their 300-foot bridge in, we'll be at Canal Bridge. So this project, these 2 projects in tandem represent us completing almost 2/3 of the loop around the lake. So we're really excited to be at this point. It is another recreational trails program grant. It is $100,000 matched with the $25,000 from Duke Energy comprehensive relicensing agreement. We had 2 bids. They were, again, it's in the informal bid range. They were very close. Difference by less than $8,000 for a $100,000 project or more, 125. That's real close for us. So happy to get it, get that level of interest and see that we're pretty close on the mark with the expenses for this. Tri-State Company Incorporated was again the apparent low bidder, and it recommended that we award the project to them for $90,334.04. This is again under our budget, which leaves roughly $26,000, almost $27,000 for us to account for change orders or any other unexpected expenses on the project.
Questions or comments for Shane?
Shane, notice this road crossing column. Exactly what's involved in the road crossing?
So the road crossing involves concrete pads, truncated domes, which are the detectable warning strips, which are part of the high visibility package for anyone with visual impairments. It includes 4 sets of MUTCD traffic signs, as well as the posts that they are installed in, painting on the road, and then gravel base and other general site work in that.
Shane, can you, just for my information, it says includes an armored stream crossing. So kind of explain that so everybody understands what that is again.
An armored stream crossing is a trail technique to cross intermittent water sources without putting a bridge or culvert in it. Stones are used with a flat surface. They're embedded into the ground so that it provides a smooth transition for hikers and bikers to go over it without impacting or causing any erosion. It's the nice thing about it is it's a cheaper and it's a long-term solution that has minimal maintenance costs compared to a culvert or a bridge. It's not suitable for all situations, but this one does allow us to put that in there. So it's something that I look for alternatives to having a structure that would increase our expense per foot and also require long-term maintenance or possible replacement down the road.
Win, economical and actually
Sir.
more environmental friendly. So good, thanks.
If you want to see one, there's one in Cook's Trail.
Other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, did you state which one you were gonna pick, the lowest bidder, or?
Yes, sir. I recommend that we go with the apparent low bidder on the project, which is Tri-State. Their application was complete. Their project was under the total, and that is concurrent with North Carolina
You
bidding
know,
law.
I was sitting there reading these numbers, of course, we didn't have them till just now. But boy, there's a lot of difference between those bids.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, 32 to 49, it's a lot of difference on the wall. And the gravel trail's $15,000 difference from one to the other, so it's all over the page.
One of the interesting things is
And you are recommending the Tri-State, is that what you said?
Yes, sir. As per North Carolina law, we go through a competitive bidding process, and we're required to go with the lowest responsible bidder, which in this case is Tri-State Company, and is a company that we have worked before with in the past, has gone really well, and I do believe that Suttles Grading as well would have done a good job on the project as well. They've bid on a few of our projects now and are interested in them in the future. So they're looking at ways to increase their level of competition for it. So that's what we're always looking for, is to work with good people and work with them again.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? All right, hearing none without objection, this item will remain on the consent item agenda. Thank you, Shane.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to item number 11 will be from our Finance Department, our fiscal year 18-19 audit contract amendment, and that will be presented by Scott Cook, Deputy Finance Director. Scott?
Hi there. As you can see, this is a request to amend the audit contract to give us and the auditors more time. It's normally due October 31st, but there's an automatic extension granted by the state until December 1st to submit. But with the situation this year in finance, it's kind of hurt us a little bit there on time-wise. This extends it until January 31st, and the state treasurer's office requires board approval on audit submission extensions.
Questions or comments for Scott?
Understand.
Yes, sir. Hearing none without objection, this item will remain on the consent item agenda. Thank you, Scott. Moving on to items number 12 and 13 from the Tax Department, that will be our tax collection report and our release refund report for November 2019. Danny Eisenhower, Tax Administrator. Danny?
Afternoon, gentlemen. We'll start with the tax collection report, very top. Now, this is the actual levy. So we have the current levy is $44,815,217. This is on the real and personal property only. We've collected a little over $31 million, which puts us at 69.7% collected. If you go down to the bottom of that, you'll see property tax and motor vehicle tax. We're at property tax, we're at 71.85% collected. Motor vehicle, 44.08% collected, which gives us the current year's in the middle of 69.19% collected on the budget. Delinquent taxes, we are at 60.25% collected, and late list penalty category, we're at 55.42% collected.
Questions or comments on the tax collection report? All right, hearing none without objection, this item will remain on the consent item agenda. Release refund report.
Release refund report for the tax system. We have releases on the report. We'll show $132,000, $132,979.66. Of that, we rebilled $129,940.87, which gives us a net release of $3,038.79. There are $18.94 worth of actual refunds, And in the vehicle tax, we have refunds in the amount of $147.15. Just sort of a side note, if you look at the report, you'll see that that Bell South is the main contributor to that report. And what that is the public utilities gave us an amount, then they changed that amount. So in our current tax system, we have to treat that as a total release and then a rebill. So that's the reason you see that those releases so high, but you also see the rebill so high, which gives us that net release of $3,000. I'll be glad to answer any other questions.
Questions or comments on the release report?
What's the deal with Bell South?
That's what I was saying, that's a public utility. Whenever the public utilities, when the Department of Revenue sends their values for us to bill, then they amended that value, and so we had to release it and rebill it.
I heard you just didn't identify with Bell South and that.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any other questions, comments? All righty, hearing none without objection, this item will remain on the consent item agenda. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, moving on to items for decision. The first one will be Board of Commissioners approval for appropriation for the Veterans Memorial. In summary, in recent years, the commissioners have received several requests for donations to certain projects. And in a letter dated to Mr. Jack Carroll and Mr. Champ-Ray dated July the 17th, 2018, Burke County Commission Chairman at the time, Jeff Ritten, outlined 6 objectives that needed to be achieved before the county would be involved in the Killed in Action Memorial on the grounds of the current courthouse. Number 1 being an official spokesperson needed to be determined and communicated to the county, who the county could deal with exclusively, and that has been achieved. Second, that the selected memorial design be submitted to the spokesperson to the board's approval within 3 written cost estimates good for 60 days, when that has also been achieved. That 50% of the funding for the monument be raised by the private donations prior to the proceeds being awarded. And number 4, that the entire cost of the monument be raised before ground is broken or construction begins. And number 5, that there be a development and presentation plan for future maintenance of the memorial. And lastly, that all concerned parties accept the current location of the courthouse may change sometimes in the future, and the county had to have no obligation. The letter goes on to state that nothing in that that is agreed upon until all terms are set down in the contract form and signed by both parties. I'm happy to report as of December this month of 2019, all conditions of that letter have been met, to include that the Killed in Action Committee reported that they have in their checking account $23,800+ toward the project. And additionally, as of December 2019, the Courthouse Square Steering Committee, which we met with a week or so ago, has informed the Killed in Action Committee chairman and treasurer that they have been granted permission to construct that memorial on the grounds of the old historic Burke County Courthouse as soon as construction plans have been submitted for their approval. Gentlemen, any questions or comments about what I've reported to you as of this time?
Mr. Chairman, that steering committee, have they had the blessing of council, or do they need the blessing of council for that to proceed?
The county manager, the city manager, the city attorney, the chair of that committee, and someone else granted that. And I think that I'm going to be correct in saying that the city manager is comfortable that they will be granted that through the new board when it arrives. With that being said, it is the request now that we provide $15,000 funding that we said that if these conditions were met, that we would appropriate. and that would have to come out of the fund balance. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, a couple of comments, if I may. Sure. First of all, I want to say that what the approach that they began with on this, the veterans was hoping to get approval from this group, from the Board of Commissioners. Not because they were afraid to raise money if they couldn't raise money, because it would have made it easier for them to have raised the money, to have had that support. I do want to say to each of you, thank you for agreeing to support it. Secondly, we owe a thank you to, I don't know, 8 or 10 veterans who consistently, persistently continue to work and try to get the money gathered together and to get the thing approved. They had told some of us last week, I think Johnny was part of that, but that they were, they had the money and the city had agreed that they would probably okay that at their board meeting. So a round of applause for some hardworking guys, and some of them getting older in years and getting even slow to move around. So a great effort, shows you the dedication and the will and the desire to have that monument on behalf of the citizens of Burke County. And I, for one, would like to say I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. The only thing I forgot to report is the committee had requested the northeast corner across from the theater. That is not where it's going to be. It will be on the opposite side. It will be on the south side of the current Confederate monument. And the Killed in Action Committee is absolutely thrilled with the piece of property that has been designated to build. And there's plenty of room with the plans that they have now to place that memorial there. So,
A further comment on that, they all agreed the other night that for a drive-by view, it's a much better location, and I agree with that.
all right. Any other questions or comments? All right, without objection, this item will remain on the agenda for decision. Moving on to item number 2 will be the adoption of the rules for 2020, rules and procedures. Anybody have any questions or comments regarding adoption of the rules and procedures? Madam Clerk, any comments? All right, hearing none, without objection, this item will remain on the item for decision. Okay, moving on to item number 3 is reappointment to the TDA, Tourism Development Authority. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is a request to make some appointments or reappointments to the Tourism Development Authority. The term is for 2 years. Seat number 6 was formerly held by Jared Bailey. That is vacant due to a resignation, I believe. An application from Jenny Irwin was received for this seat. We need applications for seat number 1 held by Polly Ledbetter, seat 5, Dana Wisnett, and seat 8, and Angel Crawley. And we will take care of the commissioner's seat number 9, as part of your slate of commissioner appointments on the consent agenda. But really, this is up to you on what you want to do. I would entertain, if you have any direction, to let me know, and I'll try to carry it out.
Any comments, gentlemen?
It'd be nice to fill it up by our full agenda meeting, but I don't know how she's going to do that.
That's going to be my recommendation, that we postpone these appointments until our January meeting. There are applications that need to be turned in. There is a special call meeting of the Tourism Development Authority for Wednesday. They will be in closed session. Not knowing what's going to happen in that closed session, I think it would behoove us to wait for these appointments to see what occurs in that closed session meeting. Therefore, I propose that we move these appointments until the January session with further discussion between the commissioners. I know some of you have had some additional input that you want to have us consider before some of these reappointments or appointments are made. So I am going to ask that we remove this and put it on the January agenda. Does anybody have any objections to that? All right, hearing none. Oh, I'm sorry.
We'll have to do that during the regular meeting.
Yeah.
No question?
No. Mr. Attorney, do we have to do that during the regular meeting, or can I do it now?
If it's a consent of the group,
That's what I was thinking. If it's a consent, we won't have to, Mr. Taylor. It's just a postponement of this decision item until January. We're not making a decision, we're just postponing it to make a decision.
I think because of the few requests that we got to sit on the board, you're probably absolutely right.
No problem postponing, you just postpone it on regular meeting.
Okay, without, are you objecting to me postponing it to January? Okay, all right, without objection, we will postpone this one until January. Okay. Any other reports that need to come before us today? All right, as a courtesy reminder, the Christmas parade is tomorrow evening at 6:00 p.m. Brian would want everybody down there by 4:30, I think.
Well,
4:30.
I'll have to get the car in position, so y'all can find me. I think it's position number 4 or 5. We'll be usually right behind the old fire truck that gasses us out.
So you can smell diesel off. The county will have candy available for the commissioners to pass out.
We got bags.
We have bags. Kay's taking care of that.
Can we ask the fire truck, last year it left us in the dust, and we look like Secret Service agents running down. I broke a sweat. We got a good hard jog for about half a mile. Usually it's a nice leisurely saunter, but last year it was not. It was a kind of a sprint. So we'll tell them to lay off the gas a little bit in front of us.
Well, may I make one comment?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I like to do it, excuse me. I don't mind passing out candies, but I got accused of not being at the Christmas parade several times last year because the car rides by and we're nowhere around the car. And, if people are not real familiar with who you are, they don't know that you're a county commissioner handing out candy. And from that point, it becomes a negative instead of a positive. And since you can't throw it out the car like you used to, it creates a really differing opinion, and I don't know if we benefit from it or not. So, for whatever it's worth, you have heard it.
If you remember last year, they were, hurry up, catch up, because it was, so I'm walking the tightrope.
Maybe we can ask somebody at the city to realize the fact that most of us are more mature in age, and maybe they can slow.
I hope you're speaking for yourself.
I'm speaking for myself, because I won't be there tomorrow night. I'm speaking. So maybe they can help us out a little bit there, and the police won't nudge us like they did last year. Jeff, you have to keep everybody in line and keep them moving. Okay. So I think that's the only reminder I have is for tomorrow night, correct? All right, does anybody else have anything to bring before the board? All righty. Gentlemen, I think I've told most of you I will be in Washington, D.C. for the next 4 days. I'll be home Friday evening at 6 o'clock. Be in meetings with Senator Burke, Senator Tillis, and several of the representatives from North Carolina. So working on some projects for North Carolina. So look forward to that.
And you passed the Secret Service test?
I passed the Secret Service test. We will be at the White House for several hours one day. So looking forward to that, to have some leverage again for Burke County as we see our representatives up there. Anything else to come before the board? If not, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. 5-0, Madam Clerk. Thank you.